Welcome to another episode of Share Your Bitcoin Journey presented by Bitcoin for the Arts. I am Dion Wilson, the founder and executive director of Bitcoin for the Arts, a 501c3 nonprofit empowering artists with Bitcoin grants, education, and sovereign funding tools. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a writer, editor, ghostwriter, and founder of one of the most important publishing experiments happening anywhere in the Bitcoin space. Known across X, LinkedIn, and Nostra as Human Writer 21, his work has reached millions of readers and shaped the public voice of dozens of Bitcoin founders, neobanks, and policy thinkers. He is the creator and lead editor of 21 Futures, the world's first Bitcoin fiction anthology project, now an imprint of the Consensus Network. His anthologies, Timechain and Financial Fallout, have introduced an entire generation of readers to sound money through stories. His next project, Notoroid Saga, is bringing Bitcoin into animated films. Beyond the page, he is organizing the Gran Canaria Bitcoin community, runs the Proof of Walks meetups, and recently delivered a keynote at Bitcoin Ireland called Solving Bitcoin's Biggest Problems Through Human to Human Communication. In this conversation, he shares his personal journey from journalist writer in the UK to full time Bitcoin author, living on a Bitcoin standard in Spain, why he believes the next decade of Bitcoin adoption belongs to storytellers and not engineers. He now is paying authors and artists in Bitcoin through 21 Futures and what the Notoroid saga will mean for the future of Bitcoin film. His story is articulate, principled, and full of wisdom for any writer, editor, or storyteller who has ever wondered whether the work they do has a future on the Bitcoin standard. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Philip Charter. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you so Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dion. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about culture and the arts. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, a rather long introduction of everything that I've ever done. It's given me a bit of a panic attack about all these different projects that I'm trying to run, and some of them are escaping me, and some of them are going on track. So yeah, lots to do and lots to get into.
So, you describe yourself as a writer, editor, and ghostwriter who escaped the dystopian British weather for the Gran Canaria. Before any of the Bitcoin work, take us back. Who were you as a writer?
Yeah, my writing started. It actually first started when I worked an office job in London around at the end of the 2000s. I'm slightly older than I look, perhaps, if people are watching the video, but I was working in advertising as a first job after university. And I started writing a typical, what is now a typical blog, but at the time I couldn't find anyone else doing it, which was basically a blog to complain about my, corporate life, about how terrible advertising was and how everyone was stuck in this cubicle farm, sniffing their own farts and patting each other on the back, saying how brilliant they were. So I wrote this kind of sarcastic blog and just started pumping out words and experimenting with like how to publish online. And I think that was my first sort of experience of writing and publishing. Now I thought there would be tons of people, especially in America as well, writing these kinds of blogs. But back in 2007, 2008, the blogosphere was quite fractured and wasn't easy to find things. Like nothing was findable. There was no index. There was no like easy platforms like Medium or something where you could find like what's trending and what's big. So I didn't really connect with anyone, any other writers, and that happened when I started to write fiction, which was really when I left London and started traveling. So yeah, I got into into fiction writing and did a lot of work of how to write stories and how to make them not suck. And that took several years. And then I started publishing and hanging out in online communities, publishing a lot of short stories and short fiction with online journals, anthologies, and the whole short fiction world, which is, I suppose, how I started as a writer.
You moved from the UK to Gran Canaria and have built a real life there, a community there, and the Proof of Walk meetup there. What made you choose Gran Canaria, and what does the geography of where you live now have to do with how you think about freedom?
Yeah, great question about freedom. I first moved to Spain in 2016 and was living and working in a few different places on the peninsula, so in the mainland of Spain. And during COVID, I was looking for a place that I could work remotely and escape the bad British weather. I haven't really lived in the UK since about 2010 or no, 2011, I think. I've lived in lots of different places around the world, and of course, I've gone back to the UK. But during COVID, I was there in Blighty and was looking for sunny places to base myself, basically. And it was kind of complicated because of Brexit, the UK leaving Europe. But as I was already a resident of Spain, I was able to continue living in the Canary Islands, which is part of Spain, without too much issue. So I decided to sort of move there and try it out. And yeah, I think freedom is a good word. On the one hand, Spain is very tightly controlled and is a nightmare bureaucratically and has a very um, captured perspective in a lot of ways. Most normal people here, but there is a great freedom of living in this island paradise, and the geography is beautiful and great, and I feel somewhat free living next to the beach and in a place where um yeah, I think people's minds here in Canaries especially is a bit more like an island mindset, a kind of subtropical or tropical island mindset of they don't want to live anywhere else because here is great, and they like just the simple things in life of, meeting friends, being outside, trying to be healthy. Um, that's what I gain out of being here. It's kind of a complicated story, I guess, Spain and the culture and how Canaries is different. But for me, this was an intermediate step towards being freer and being more sovereign.
You have 7 books published, and you own your own name across fiction and nonfiction. Your fiction has been translated into multiple languages and won the international prizes. Uh, what do you think the literary world taught you that has carried directly into how you write inside the Bitcoin space?
Yeah, I think writing for yourself is great, and that's the place where every artist and writer should start, is creating what they want. But as you develop, you learn about publishing, whether that's galleries for physical artists or film festivals for filmmakers. And in the book world, it's publishing, be that small independent publishers, be that online zines, or big the publishing industry that puts out books. So I think I learned like how that works with short fiction. Short fiction is quite a difficult medium to sell. Funnily enough, it actually used to be like the rock stars of writing were short fiction writers. Hemingway's and Fitzgerald and Mark Twain and many other non-American writers too. But something changed in the 20th century. I think it's mostly that we move towards stories which fit into 90-minute films, and that translates to the novel. The three-act structure of movies is often quite similar to the shape of the stories in novels, and short fiction really has died a death in terms of being like a commercial product. I never really wanted to earn money, and I didn't do it for a commercial reason. But I think learning more about how publishing works has shaped what I do now in the Bitcoin space. I suppose what I do fits into two silos. One is the writing for founders and companies, which is more content writing, and in that I try to imbue that with stories. That's one side of things, and the other is working with 21 Futures and Consensus, the publisher, to help authors put their great stories and books out into the world. And certainly on the publishing side of that, I think I've moved away from wanting the big book deal with Penguin Random House and to be the, let's go on the talk shows and get a top billing at this literary festival, because I don't really get on with the industry. I think it's a dinosaur industry that is sort of eating itself, and it's very old fashioned, and it's not long for this world. We have all of these other ways to publish which allow people to be more in control, more sovereign. That there are upsides and downsides, but yeah, personally I think being in control of your own publishing is very important for artists, for writers, and that's something that I advocate for in the Bitcoin space.
There's just something about having control of your own destiny, of your own work, of what your own choices can be, that just outweighs the benefits of recognition in a unfair system, a system of, a false reality. You just rather be more authentic in your appreciation. And I'm finding this seems to be the ethos of the Bitcoiners that are really building in the Bitcoin space. It's something about the low time preference and the authenticity of just being genuine within yourself that just creates so much more value than being a part of a traditional rigged system.
Yeah, I think yeah, right on. I agree with you. I think it's mostly out of necessity. I think if you're a realist, all Bitcoin content pretty much is locked out of traditional media, traditional publishing. Maybe a couple of academic, presses and publishing houses are sort of thinking about it, but they usually go towards crypto and blockchain. In
Mhm.
terms of major publishers, major record labels and things, they're not interested in what they see as a niche, maxi Bitcoin mindset. And I met so many of the great artists who are exhibiting at Bitcoin BTC Prague, sorry, and they're not ever going to be exhibiting in a town hall gallery of sort of watercolor landscapes and then like a bank on fire or something. It doesn't go together. So they've had to develop the means to, I mean, they've built marketplaces. They've built the digital means to like distribute their work, to get value from other people and to share that. And I think, yeah, everyone building in a Bitcoin space has to do that. So it's kind of out of necessity, but yes, it's more rewarding that you're not working for crumbs. You're working in a pretty small ecosystem, but one which is at least supportive and sovereign.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm not a technical person. I'm not a developer, and I often write diatribes about how all of these cypherpunk developers are talking to themselves or talking in a way that people who are non-devs don't understand, and that's part of how I try to help the ecosystem. How did I come to it? Through Niko Laamanen, who runs Consensus Publishing House. He was a client of mine. I was helping him with his own personal writing, and I knew nothing about Bitcoin, and nothing about money, nothing about finance, nothing about how it worked. And through working with him, the great thing was like he set up and founded Consensus Network, which has a different ethos. He was suddenly saying, just have all these books. Just I'll send you all the e-copies of these books. Just read them. And he was quite gently with how he introduced me to a lot of these concepts. And being a book person, I read them and I found them interesting. And I started asking questions, and then hundreds of rabbit holes started opening up. But yeah, in about the space of about 3 or 4 years, I went from that, a zero knowledge, to working full-time in Bitcoin and wanting to devote all of my time and energy to it. So I think it was like an exponential learning curve that really ramped up after that first contact. And funnily enough, I was just reading Knut Svanholm's book, Everything Divided by 21 Million, which was the first book that Niko recommended and that I read. And yeah, I just got a physical copy of it and was like reminding myself of it. So yeah, I'm trying to fill up this bookshelf behind me with even more Bitcoin books.
There's a moment of every Bitcoiner when the orange pill actually lands. The light comes on and you cannot unsee it. Walk us through that moment.
Yeah, I remember it precisely. And you're right, it was a precise moment. And it was talking with Niko in one of these sessions about inflation. This was during the rampant inflation of COVID and money printing in 2020, what would have been 21 or maybe even early 22. And just simply asking, he was writing something that was questioning inflation and writing about that. And something made me want to look behind the curtain and say, yeah, what is it? Why am I paying 20% more for olive oil than I was 2 months ago? Why is that? It's very easy to swallow all of the lies that you're fed. Of just, oh, it's this war, oh, it's this energy crisis. It's always some kind of, oh, it's a climate. It's some kind of temporary issue rather than a group of unelected officials pushing a button and deciding to print more money. So that was the moment where I thought, I'm going to look into this. Then I started reading a lot more Bitcoin books, money books, and I haven't stopped since. And even though I'm probably someone who's read, on average, many more Bitcoin books than the average pleb, there's still so much more to get into and explore. And yeah, I never have enough time. My reading list just grows rather than reduces.
The Bitcoin rabbit hole is deep, isn't it? It's one thing just leads to another, and you just keep going and going, and it's like there's no end.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
understood.
I'm not a technical guy. I don't know about you. And I always thought, well, I'll just leave all that stuff. I don't need to know how mining works. And as I just trust that it's all, but it gets you because suddenly you're working on a project which is like a mining company. It's, oh, now I've got tons more to learn. More recently, I've been working with white noise and on private chats and Nostr end-to-end encryption and stuff like that. So there's no escape. There's no escape. You just gotta. There's a new rabbit hole and you have to go through it, and it's time consuming, but it gives you something to.
Your keynote at Bitcoin Ireland was titled Solving Bitcoin's Biggest Problem Through Human to Human Communication. H2H, not P2P. Lay out the thesis for our audience. What is Bitcoin's biggest problem, and why do you believe stories are the solution and not better technical explanations?
I think better technical explanations are necessary, but Bitcoin itself, or well, I should say, even specific products and services within the Bitcoin ecosystem, let alone the wider Bitcoin network and how complex that is, they don't work like traditional products and services in the normal B2C world, in the normal business to consumer world, where everything is done with UX and UI and storytelling and great copy and huge teams of marketing and decades of making things, of refining things. Everything is done on that front to make things easy and simple, nice and simple, so that when you point and click, it just works and it's intuitive, that it's simple. It's not that Netflix is particularly simple thing. It's not. It's just been designed through a lot of investment in time and energy and money to make it that way so that my mum can log into Netflix and watch what she wants. And she's definitely not a technical person. But yeah, getting back to the thesis of what H2H means is, I think all communication from developers, from anyone, business people, anyone working in the Bitcoin space should understand who their audience is and try and reach out to them as people. I think as an industry, as an ecosystem, we're sometimes quite bad at doing that. We say, hey, I've got this technical cryptographic proof which solves a certain problem in this industry, but we're coming at it from a typical marketing mistake, which is you're talking about your own product rather than what the audience cares about. So yeah, coming to it from that perspective, a lot of the work that I've done, I try to imbue stories and insert them. Can be hard in Bitcoin because people are keen on privacy. They don't want to share, hey, our user has done this or said this. But what I think companies need to go for more, and this could be non-profits, it can be for-profits, it can be artists, is getting the reaction from the reader or viewer from whatever you're publishing that says, oh, that's me. Yeah, that person's like me. That I get that. And in that respect, you need to tell a lot of stories. You need to tell a lot of different stories. For example, I was a writing coach, and all of the client testimonials that I shared had to be quite different. I couldn't just say, oh, I help everyone with the same thing, because it doesn't resonate. I was helping a copywriter with one thing and a content writer with another thing, someone from Brazil with one thing who's a Portuguese speaker, and someone from Russia with another thing, maybe. And once you share those different stories, more people start to say, oh, yeah, that's me. That resonates with me. And that's a problem I have too. So I think if you do that, you can get great results. And a very quick example is I saw the other day Brains, the mining software company based in the Czech Republic, they were celebrating the fact that a solo miner had used their hash rate marketplace to buy a hash rate and had won a block. And they tracked this person down and said, can we share that it was you? And they'd given him a trophy and done this big write-up about how it, like, told a story about, wasn't just, oh, cool, that person's rich. It's like they told the story of how it happened, of what it meant to him. And I just thought that was a really good example of, I was sitting there thinking, that's me. I want one of those trophies. I want to buy a hash rate from Brains. This is a problem I have. This is something that I could do. So yeah, I think that's one example. And there's many more, but especially from companies, especially from founders, more stories which resonate with your audience so they can go, oh, I do care about that. Okay, that's why I should care.
We couldn't agree with you more. That is exactly why we are here. That is exactly what we are doing at Bitcoin for the Arts.
Good to hear.
We are sharing artists' stories, and not just one particular artist, but all genres and all disciplines of art, because we feel that somebody's story will resonate with someone, and someone else's story will resonate with someone else. And it's very important to let people hear these stories, because these journeys are important, because people can relate to these journeys and understand that they are not alone in the world in their thinking and ways to try to better themselves in the economies and the systems that we have no choice but to live in. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. These stories are very important. You ghostwrite.
Yeah, and I think,
Go ahead.
sorry, just to jump in on that very quickly, just I like the word journey. Maybe it's in danger of being overused like many terms, but I think it still holds true. I prefer that way of thinking, that term because everyone is on a journey, whether they're at 0 or 99 in many different aspects of life. I think in the Bitcoin space, because most people are very technical, particularly INTJ, INTP thinkers, they're like, oh, we just need problem solution. This is a problem. I've got the solution. In marketing terms, that you need a bit more fluff in there. You need a bit more like, you're on a journey. Come with me. Let's take you to the next step. You can't sell someone to something in one step. Maybe you could in 1920, like buy Coca-Cola, it's delicious. And people go, oh, cool, it's delicious. I'll buy it. Now it's like Coca-Cola's marketing is probably like a 5,000 step process of touch points and very complex customer journey. But yes, I like the term journey and think better than problem solution.
You ghostwrite for Bitcoin founders, neobank CEOs, and policy consultants. You have helped bring Bitcoin to investors who then wrote checks. From inside of that work, what do most Bitcoin founders get wrong about their own communications, and what shifts when you fix it?
I think much of this is done via LinkedIn, which might be surprising and it's not a very arty topic to talk about, but LinkedIn, for all its faults, is a great way to connect with people in your small network. And in terms of the B2B Bitcoin space, it's really excellent for that. So I think the first error would be discounting platforms which are outside the echo chamber, outside of Nostr and X. Secondly, the typical founders, if they're technical people, just don't have the confidence or skill to publish, so they just don't do it. And thirdly, it's really like they have the ideas, but it's helping them to bring out those ideas and to develop just a consistent voice. If you are a founder or if you do anything in the space, and you'll know this as a podcaster and running your own project, if you have a consistent message and you put it out every week, every day, every month, whatever it is, people start to get it. Oh, you're the Bitcoin for the arts guy. Oh, you're the totally human writer guy. Oh, you're the person that's founded this company. Sometimes I think if you're publishing a very in-depth op-ed or an article or a newsletter, people might not even read it, but just seeing that you're willing to put the work in and to publish something so in-depth that shares your expertise and your opinion, I think that's important. Differentiates you from AI if you are actually saying, hey, this is my personal experience running this team. This is my experience having a problem building this company, and here's how I solved it. Those kind of things help build trust, especially with partners, investors. And I think in Bitcoin, everybody's a potential partner because everything's connecting up. You know, everything is like, oh, we could work together, we could do this together, and it would be more powerful. I'd say there's a massive gap in funding. People are like, cool, let's partner up and let's work together. And then they start looking around about how are we gonna pay for this? But that's another issue.
Your professional brand is totally human writer, in a deliberate contrast to AI. As generative AI floods the content space with frictionless text, what do you believe is the long-term moat for human writers? And what does an AI-saturated world mean for the value of human-authored Bitcoin storytelling?
Yeah, I get asked this question quite a bit because my name, and I'm certainly not anti-AI. I'm not a Luddite. I use it for certain tasks to research, to maybe iterate ideas, for it to ask me questions. I find that helpful, but I don't use it to generate text. What was the question? How is it going to affect writing? I think it will strip out
Yes,
the bottom.
basically, how does the AI-saturated market affect the value that people will perceive for an human-authored Bitcoin story?
I think in terms of the market, it will strip out 80% or more of what humans previously needed to work on and write. And I think that's true for any industry other than maybe physical things like building a house or being a personal trainer. So for knowledge work, I think it's going to take the bottom 50% it's already done in terms of the mechanical tasks of being a lawyer or even being a teacher or something. And then it starts to encroach on the next bit. So I always look outside of the black box. If you think of AI as a machine, as a box, it needs input, and that input is pre-existing published digital content. And there is a lot outside of that which is still valuable. And that comes down to the input of human experience, of biological lived experience, of stories, of our opinions, things which a machine could say, I don't know that because I'm not you. I don't know what your opinion is. And I think that's true for all artists, not just writing. That's the place to focus on rather than trying to edit what the machine has spat out or somehow extract value, which is a window that's closing very quickly from what the machine can produce. So, in terms of value, I think writing and art will be more valuable than ever in the age of AI. We're currently going through a couple of years where everyone and his dog is very obsessed about trying to quickly extract value. Oh, I can vibe code an app. Let's publish it. Let's get it out. Or maybe I can get some subscriptions and earn some money. Or I can put together this workflow where somebody can automate and earn like cents on the dollar or whatever. Or maybe that will be valuable. And because everyone can do that and is doing it, that value trends, everything trends to the marginal cost of production, like Jeff Booth says, to my mind. So I think it's better to focus on the long term of what you can build, which adds value or which is independent of AI. That's not to say that you shouldn't use AI to help you with that process and to speed things up and to perform mechanical tasks. It certainly can very well. But yeah, I would say we've gone from the stage of, oh, hey, we've got turnkey blogs, billions of them flooding the internet, to now, oh, we've got vibe coded apps flooding the internet and nobody's using them. So, what's the value in that? We'll have to see how people develop that. But it's certainly a turbulent time in pretty much all industries, but definitely in creative industries, because that's something which people with a very high time preference, like company CEOs, when they've got their quarterly figures to fill in, think, hey, let's fire the marketing department and just use ChatGPT because I can save 50K. Well, you can, but long term, that's not a good idea. So I think we're still in that kind of phase where everybody is figuring out the balance between short and long term gains and use of AI. But yeah, I'm bullish on like what it really means. Imagine, I think in real life experiences are invaluable now. I could imagine events where I would pay handsomely to go to a storytelling event like they do with the Moth and these podcasts, story slams, because I want to see a real person telling a real story about their real life. And that becomes more valuable than it is today because so few people will know how to do it. So I think the value will be high, but how to get that value, how to get paid for what you do is forever a challenge.
It's like a homemade cake versus a store-bought cake.
Yeah. You got the smell from your
That's it.
mum's kitchen. You
Yeah.
got the making it together with her or whatever. So yeah, agree.
21 Futures started in late 2022 as an idea for a single book and has grown into a multi-anthology imprint of the Consensus Network. Take us back to the very beginning. What was the moment you realized Bitcoin needed its own fiction tradition and that no one else was going to build it?
Yeah, I should say that there were works of Bitcoin fiction and certainly freedom fiction, as I call it, like the broader themes before that, and none of them were well known or particularly well written. And one of my bugbears about Bitcoin and stories is that everybody wants to tell the story of Satoshi. And to my mind, it's a story that we don't need to tell, and that it's better if we just leave that alone and focus on other stories, because we're all just guessing. And I think if you do know, or if you do present a Satoshi story, it detracts from Bitcoin's myth and decentralized nature. So yeah, I wanted to. How did the book start? I noticed, I guess back then, that really I wanted to bridge the gap between technical Bitcoin explanations and how to and non-fiction works, and normies, or people who are at least crypto or Bitcoin curious, with stories. It turns out that the book was consumed more within the Bitcoin space. I've personally sold it to people who are not Bitcoiners, and I hope that they've at least read and it sparked a little bit of imaginations. But it's that journey. It's like, oh, hey, I know this guy that edited a book of sci-fi stories, and I read one, it's interesting, and I looked up this term. That's just the first little step, the seeds that you're planting. So that was the idea, is to try and plant those seeds in the heads of whoever reads the book. And then, yeah, it transformed into a second book, into a website with a blog where we publish stories. We have audiobooks now, social accounts, and working slowly, maybe, but working towards turning some of these stories into films.
Timechain in 2023, Financial Fallout in 2025, a third anthology in the work. You have paid over $4,000 to authors and artists in the process. What does it mean for you that 21 Futures pays authors in Bitcoin? And what does that change for the writers who work with you?
It's massive. And I can tell you that when I first was paid $10, I think, for a story that I submitted to some online magazine or some anthology, even if it's a token payment, and in fiction writing, basically very few people are making a living from it, especially if it's short fiction. Even a token payment is such a big boost that some editor has seen true value, and readers too, in your work, that you've been paid. It's massive. So I wanted to do that. Our anthology writers have been paid for being in the anthology. They also keep the copyright to their story. And the same on our website as well. If I decide to publish a review, an opinion article, or a story on the website that I think resonates, then it's nice for writers to be paid. I think a lot of Bitcoiners, they're quite new to writing fiction, or they're quite new to publishing. So if they get that boost of being paid, they say, this is something I can devote more time and effort to. This is how I can develop. This is something I want to do more of, and that my work is valuable. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to do that. And I hope we can pay lots more authors, and that eventually those authors will find our publishing house and say, I need help. I need an editor. I need help publishing this great novel, about which includes some aspect of freedom, libertarianism, Bitcoin. That's the idea.
You have called 21 Futures freedom fiction and explicitly broadened the project from sound money to the full freedom community, privacy tech, self sovereignty, free cities, libertarian ideals. Why was that expansion important? And what kind of stories are you actively looking for now that you were not seeking out at the start?
It's important because Bitcoin, anything, Bitcoin for the arts, Bitcoin fiction, Bitcoin conferences have a time frame. They have a short time window. Yes, you could say we go to tech conferences or internet conferences, don't really go to telephone conferences, or especially with digital technology, there is a certain window at which that just becomes the norm. Having a mobile phone becomes the norm. So do we need to be saying, hey, I've written some cell phone fiction? This is like the first time people were able to communicate without sending a beeper message to each other or being connected physically via a landline. And maybe when that first started, it was really exciting. Oh, you could include it in you could have a whole story about how this group of criminals communicated by cell phone and nobody else had them. So maybe they got an advantage. But that window eventually closes. And I think I'm hoping that Bitcoin fiction won't be a thing in 20 years because everyone will be using Bitcoin. You don't have dollar fiction, do you? You don't have, as I was saying, cell phone fiction. So freedom fiction has been a long time running. There was especially sci-fi writers, classic sci-fi writers, Ray Bradbury, maybe Robert Heinlein, Werner Vinge, many more, who were writing on these ideals of freedom, of small government and being sovereign communities. I think The Moon is a Harsh Mistress is a great example of a freedom fiction book. If anyone wants to read that, that's by Robert Heinlein, which sort of predicts a decentralized form of protest and rebellion that actually comes off and works. And there's so many parallels with Bitcoin. It's interesting. And it was published in like 1959 or 1960 or something. So it's wild that somebody could have such a great message and foresight to understand. It's set in 2021 something, I think. But yeah, that's why I think ultimately the underlying message of Bitcoin is freedom, and that's why we want to go bigger with it. I think there's more scope for Bitcoin fitting into stories, and we'll see more works of fiction like that. I think Saifedean put out his fiction book, The Gold Standard, and Lynn Auden has written a fiction book. So they don't need to be specifically about Bitcoin, but they can touch on those aspects of freedom.
Run 21 Futures as a hybrid publisher. Authors come to you with manuscripts. You provide editing, cover, typesettings, marketing, and they keep 100% of their royalties. Walk us through how a freedom fiction author should think about working with an imprint like 21 Futures and what kind of writer is the right fit.
It's a difficult one for writers because pre-golden age of self-publishing, back in when I started writing, paying to be published or paying to publish yourself was a big no-no and a big red flag. And you'd say, oh, this vanity publishing, they're scamming me for money, and then just any old book can be published. So I would say, what's the profile of a writer who should do that? Somebody who wants to ensure high quality standards of the work that they put out, somebody who takes their book seriously enough to devote budget for it and also to devote time for it. And they're levers, right? You can publish something for free on Amazon if you do all the learning, if you do all the work, if you do all the quality control yourself, or you can outsource it all for a higher cost and do less of the time input yourself. So probably an author who thinks that they need to save on some of that time. They don't have 2 years to learn how KDP keywords work and what makes a good book cover and how to design it. And somebody who takes their project seriously. I do say to authors, be aware of someone who will just take your money. If you go to a publisher and they say, yeah, great, we have a package, it costs 15K, here it is. They don't care about your work. They don't care about whether your book sells 1 copy or 10,000 copies. They could not care less. They get paid either way. And I think a good hybrid publisher, and I put Consensus in this category, is one that only works on projects that align with their vision because they want that book to succeed. If there's a great Bitcoin book, if there's a great freedom fiction book, I personally and everyone else at Consensus wants it to do well. We're invested in it in terms of the message. So that's what I would say is you have to decide what's the right publishing route for you. The hybrid publishing isn't right for everyone, but I think certainly within the freedom space, it's a very good option because people can be quite selective about what they choose and how they publish, and they get to maintain complete control of the project.
The Notoroid Saga is the next chapter for 21 Futures, an animated short film project. For our listeners who have not followed the campaign, what is the story you are telling with the Notoroid Saga, and why animation as the medium?
Yeah, I'm not sure how we decided to make a film of it. That's a good point. I think it was something to do with Bitcoin Film Fest and deciding to go there and saying, let's enter the pitch competition. And we decided on one of the stories from the first anthology as a sort of pilot. So this project has been going on a while, and I would say it's not necessarily on the back burner, but we're working on it behind the scenes. I think that was the just the most visual of the stories that stood out to me. It made me sit up, and I was really imagining it as an animation in my head. I've always thought that 21 Futures has some kind of synergy with the anthology short animation show Love, Death and Robots. I don't know if you've ever seen that I think it's on Netflix, has several seasons of short animations which all tell different stories, different futuristic stories. And yeah, I've always thought, oh, it would be amazing to have something like that in the Bitcoin space, in the freedom space. And I think the first step of that is getting a good quality short animation made of one of the stories. That may spiral into its own universe and something much bigger, because Niko, who is the writer of that story, is already working on books, novels, screenplays, lots of different elements to that universe. So that's what we're working on, trying to raise funding, maybe find a sponsor who aligns with that project so that we can get the funds together to actually hire a director and an animator and make a 20-minute short that's really cool, that there's a window to the kinds of stories that could come after.
You wrote a piece called Diaries of an Imposter Filmmaker after the Bitcoin Film Fest 25, documenting your honest experience of trying to earn funding inside the Bitcoin film scene. What did you learn at that festival that no one in the Bitcoin film conversation is saying out loud?
I think it probably ties in with the funding, the lack of funding or the difficulty with funding that I was talking about. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Bitcoin is money, but it's very hard to get funding for your business or your project because there's no free money in Bitcoin. There's no VC funds spraying money around because they need to pump up their future potential value. I wanted to just write that piece because I was really inspired and I loved being at the film festival so much and all the people I met. It was great. And I just wanted to write something that was a bit real and honest. And I hope that piece gave a taste of what it's really like to be involved in that. I think Bitcoin Film Fest, shout out to them. They do a great job of helping filmmakers find funding and promote, and they give people a platform to develop their projects. It's not something that I know a lot about because I'm a writer and a publisher, and I don't usually operate in the world of knowing who to ask for funding and how to get it. So it's a challenge, but I think if people read that piece, you can probably, it's on European Bitcoin, it's maybe the Bitcoin Art Magazine website as well. Maybe it's on my blog, but yeah, you can check it out and see what it's really like to try and get a film funded.
That's another reason why we started Bitcoin for the Arts too, Philip, is because we understand that these Bitcoin projects are dear to our heart and they mean a lot to us. But finding funding and resources outside of the traditional system and rails, it can be challenging. So we want to create a platform for artists like yourselves and other artists that are building these projects to help you all create visibility and help find funding for artists in these projects, because we also feel that these are very important things. Bitcoin for the arts.
There they are.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually just
And
became a founding.
you're doing great work by saying it up.
We hope to do more. We think this is just the beginning, and we appreciate the journey that we're on and having artists like you share your stories. Bitcoin for the Arts just became the founding sponsor
Yes, sir.
for a $6 billion for the $6 billion man, the Eugene Jerrick Assange documentary that was financed by the Bitcoin community after the traditional gatekeepers blocked it. What do you see when you look at Bitcoin funded films right now? And where do you think it needs to go in the next 5 years to actually take cultural ground?
I think we need more organizations like yours, Dion. I think we need organizations that are involved in being a bridge between the filmmakers, the artists that are actually doing things on the ground and where funding comes from. And I think that's a big question that nobody's really answering in the Bitcoin space. Yes, there are VC funds, but they're interested in exchanges and proven ways to earn big bucks. Yes, there are big institutions like Strategy, but they don't seem to care about funding software development, let alone culture in Bitcoin. And yes, there are whales, but they're either asleep or selling Bitcoin right now. So I think we need to find the mechanics. And I would put into that box institutions like OpenSats as well, who have found a way to deliver funding and do great work like supporting software developers. And I think we need more of that for filmmakers and other artists. Yeah, how that gets done, I think, is networking and getting to know the right people and sharing the long-term vision and sharing the long-term incentives to actually fund grassroots, whatever it is, building or culture in Bitcoin, because the fiat world certainly isn't going to do it. And that's the challenge that we all face.
You have built the Grand Connery Bitcoin community by hand, monthly meetups, the proof of walk gatherings, your own work as an organizer alongside the writing. What have you learned about building a real generous Bitcoin community in a small place that the big conferences would miss?
Think I'm probably not the authority on building a community. Just showing up and being consistent and being open and friendly brings people to the party. It's very important to share what you're doing, even if normies are looking at that and saying, "Oh, there's a Bitcoin meetup. Oh, that's a scam. Oh, I'm not. What's a Bitcoin walk? What the hell's that?" Just seeing that those kinds of things are happening, legit Bitcoin, and I should say, Bitcoin in the Canaries is, or understanding of Bitcoin is quite behind the rest of Spain, and that's perhaps behind other European countries like Czechia and Germany and the UK. Spain tends to be a bit more crypto focused of let's trade, let's get rich now. That's the need. As for the community, yeah, I think being consistent, showing up, being friendly, and making incentives align. One of the things we struggle with, and I think every community owner or community runner struggles with, is how am I going to invest this time to something which is not a commercial entity? I don't want to earn money from people paying to come to a meetup or something. But speaking with Jordi, Jon Esteves at Atlantis, and he was at Bitcoin Island as well, based in Barcelona, and he runs a great community there. He believes that we should be charging people because that actually creates the incentive to continue to put your time into it and to develop the value for community members. So I agree with that. And I think ideally going forward, you think any film lovers community or something in a major US city, you'd want to have money involved, changing hands to actually incentivize people to do the work and to keep that community valuable and running. So I think that's ultimately what needs to happen in Bitcoin communities. It's quite nascent at the moment, just getting people to have a drink. I was playing the Block Hunters board game with some new members like last time in a bar, and we're trying to set up a talk at the university, which is actually the first university in the world to offer a master's in Bitcoin. That's based in their headquarters is in Las Palmas. So yeah, we're trying to get talks set up there, do some workshops, and bring more people along to meetups and get them to join. So yeah, it's all hands to the pump and try and do things when you can.
I agree. It's all about building a community through the meetups. This is how we really orange pill the world. We start on the community level and we slowly emerge to the global standard. And I love the fact that there's so many Bitcoiners and so many meetups now, and it's a wonderful thing to see. If you could sit down with a version of yourself who first decided that they would have a career as a writer, and tell him one thing about money, sovereignty, and what is coming, what would you tell him?
I'm not sure I would change too much, or I have one great piece of advice or lesson. I've liked learning things the hard way, and each lesson, each step I've taken on my journey to get where I am has been a lesson that I've learned from and something I've taken something from and has made me a better writer or a better business person, maybe. Yeah, I would probably say to not have a plan B and to go full force freelance as soon as possible. I think we're all a bit risk averse, some people more than others. But if you don't have a plan B and you've got to get a client or you've got to finish your book, then you damn do it. So that's my philosophy. Is like I would say take more risk and really go for it and back yourself to make things work, because when you need to, that's when you usually get the kinds of wins that you need.
Philip, where can our viewers find you?
If your viewers ever come to Gran Canaria, then you can probably find me on the beach at a Bitcoin meetup. Online, as you said, on X, I am Human Writer 21. Elsewhere, Noster and my own website and LinkedIn, I'm Totally Human Writer. So my website, totallyhumanwriter.com, has got all the links and places people can find me. If anyone's interested in publishing a book or talking, just getting some advice about publishing or marketing, just get in touch and you can find out more about 21 Futures and many other books and projects on consensus.net, and that's consensus with a K.
Last question we ask every guest this on Share Your Bitcoin Journey. If a $500 to $2,000 Bitcoin micro grant from Bitcoin for the Arts landed in your wallet tomorrow, what would it unlock for you as a creator?
It would unlock the confidence to really go for it and follow through on the No Droid Saga film. I think we've got some funding for it, which is a good start. That kind of money would give me the confidence that the project would be funded and we can go full steam ahead and really find one sponsor and start moving on it. I think with all of the different projects that I do, and it's probably true of a lot of your guests and listeners, you have to focus on one over another. And as I said, we're working in the background on that film project at the moment because we have other things which take up our daily lives and mindset. So yeah, I think an injection of 3 million sats or whatever it would be very helpful in making that project a reality.
Thank you for joining us today, Philip. Thank you all. This is another episode of Share Your Bitcoin Journey presented by Bitcoin for the Arts. Please do visit our website, bitcoinforthearts.org. We do need your support. Until next time.